right, you want to call the meeting to order?
I did.
Fair enough, okay. All right. Mr. Ethier.
Here.
Coons.
Here.
Grace. Grimm. Ray Joyce. Lakakis. I'm right here. Reading.
Here.
Simpson.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
8 present, Mr. Chairman.
Vice President, read the first. Motion for the minutes of previous meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I think it's a wonderful motion. Yes, good. Can we get a second for that?
I'll second that, sir.
There's no opposition? Wow, that's unusual.
Could somebody throw me an agenda?
It's unanimous.
All right. Item
Where's your pen?
It doesn't work, I gotta get it fixed.
Item
Okay, let's
Let
go.
the
We're
record
listening.
reflect that Murphy needs a pad.
Okay, here we go.
Items 2 and 3 are tabled at the request of sponsor. Item 4 is approving the Department of Health collective bargaining agreement with CSEA Local 801 Department of Health Unit and amending the 2023 Department of Health budget.
What's your pleasures? Mr. Come down.
Aye.
Good evening.
Good evening, thank you, Commissioner.
I don't know if everybody in this committee has been introduced. This is Ransom Moore. He is our new Assistant Commissioner for Finance, and he's replacing Shannon Witherspoon, so he's here with me tonight.
Welcome, Mr. Moore.
So we're here tonight to discuss our Civil Service Employee Association term for this year, from January 1, 2022 through the bargaining unit of December 31st, 2027. Under terms of the agreement, employees of the bargaining unit will receive a one-time payment of $3,000 per member, retroactive salary increase of 2% from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2023, and an annual increase of 3% for the period of January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2027. Other terms and conditions of employment were ratified to include an increase in the longevity amount, beeper payment increase from $3 to $6 per hour, adding Juneteenth to approved holidays, and continuation of health insurance and retirement for employees that complete 15 years of enhanced service.
Thank you. Any questions? Take a motion. Second.
Second.
Anybody opposed? It's unanimous.
All right. Item 5 is approving the Department of Mental Health collective bargaining agreement with CSEA Local 801 Department of Mental Health and Crime Victim and Sexual Violence Center Unit and amending the 2023 Department of Mental Health budget. Dr. Giordano is here this evening.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
I have brought with me my staff as well. This is Deputy Director Cindy Hoffman.
Hello,
Some of you
everybody.
may have
Nice to
met
see
her.
you.
Michael Fitzgerald is our Chief Fiscal Officer. He's here. They're here for support.
You're gonna need it.
Well, let's see. I am actually very pleased to come to you with a contract that was agreed upon after considerable discussion and negotiation. You know, you've heard me, I think, talk about the enormous strains on the mental health workforce, the behavioral health workforce. We're not unique in that. The challenge has been, for as long as I can remember, but exacerbated in recent years, retaining, attracting and retaining employees. And what guided us, I think, in our deliberations was, to be fair to our employees and to work within the confines of the Albany County budget process. And I think we've arrived at a very good agreement. I don't want to dodge this, but Cindy was involved in many of the details of the negotiation, so I'd like to ask her to join me in answering any questions you might have about our particular agreement.
Any questions? Motion. Got a motion, accept, second. Anybody opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you
I'm
very much.
I'm very
You know,
grateful.
that's what
Thank
the
you.
big guns down, they scared us.
Item 9 is approving the Shaker Place Rehabilitation and Nursing Center collective bargaining agreement with the New York State United Teachers Union and amending the 2023 Albany County budget.
Good evening.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is the new NYSEB agreement, New York United Teachers. This will be a 5-year contract that commenced January 1st of this year. The way we did this contract is that there'll be no increase in base salary for 2023, but we changed the work week from 35 hours to 37 and a half, meaning it's still a 40-hour work week, but paid for 37 and a half. And that is being done so that we can capture more hours for what's called the CMS star rating. And they'll be paid the 2.5 hours, but no increase in pay. And then the rest of the agreement is for 24, 25, 26, and 27, where those staff members in NYSEB will receive a 3% increase each year. There are some also minor increases to differential, as well as changing the life health insurance for life from 20 years to 15. Those are the major revisions within the contract. Other than that, all provisions stay the same.
Excuse me, what about the health insurance?
Excuse me?
What'd you say about the health insurance?
The health insurance will go from 20 years to 15.
15? Thank you. Yes, Sean?
I don't see a ratification letter. It was ratified by the
The
union.
ratification letter was written, it wasn't attached. We received it 3 days ago, and it's in with Peter Possel, and he'll get it to you. Correct?
Mr. Russell, yes.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The mandate from the state on staffing, which last I checked, none of the nursing homes could meet. How does this contract speak to that?
Well, that's one of the issues that we're addressing. We tried to get the professionals to go to an 8.5-hour day, 40 hours of pay at the same pay rate, but they do not want to be in the building that extra half an hour. And that would allow us to, on a weekly basis, capture 2.5 more hours. But at least we're getting 2.5. We don't really know right now what the total is going to be because we're still calculating the first quarter of this change. So we know it's going up. We did on the back of a napkin what it will be, and we think that it'll at least go up at least 1 or 2 stars in staffing, the CMS rating. Right now, we're a 1 star.
So with this implemented, it still won't get us where we need.
It will not get us to the 3.5. And you'll notice in my other agreements, we're doing the same thing. However, those staff members are going to a 42.5-hour work week, so we're even capturing more hours. We'll go up to close to around 3.0, but we're pretty successful lately in retaining and recruiting new staff members, and hopefully by, the second quarter of this year, we'll be very close to 3.5.
So you would have liked to gotten more hours, but it just didn't work out during the negotiation, is that it, basically? 'Cause I understand there's a number of things involved in the negotiation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The professionals wanted that 40-hour work week. And in all honesty, if we could get the hours where we need them to be at 37.5 and reduce everyone else's work week, who is now at 42.5, back to 40, with the same 37.5 hours of pay, then that would be the recommendation to the committee at some point in time if we could get those hours. We're only doing this to capture the hours. And in all honesty, it does help with registered nurses in 1199 and the maintenance and service workers, because we now have a handoff. Because people work 7 to 3:30, the new shift starts at 3 as an example, and there's a half an hour where everyone's together. So it's a better handoff.
Where they can tell, hey, what's going on today.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just am curious, the registered nurse supervisors are represented by the New York State United Teachers?
The registered nurses, supervisors. The registered nurses are registered by, are members of 1199. But the RN supervisors, who are managers, are represented by NYSEB.
Any other questions? Satisfied? Take a motion?
Motion.
Second? Anybody opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Item 7, labeled item 6, is authorizing a memorandum of understanding with the New York State United Teachers Union regarding registered nurse supervisor salary adjustments. Mr. Slacky?
This is an adjustment to the existing, what was the existing 2022 United Teachers Agreement so that we could capture the RN hours for the last quarter of 2022. So we didn't need to do all of the staff members in United Teachers because we only needed to capture the RNs. So we were able to get the union to agree and the staff to agree to basically implement what you just approved 3 months or a month and a half prior to the actual agreement taking place, which allowed us for around a 2-month period to capture those extra 2.5 hours, which are needed for CMS and getting toward that requirement of 3.5 hours. So this agreement is only for a few months, really not even a few months, 2.5 months. And then this agreement that you just approved will take hold January 1st of this year.
Any questions?
So,
Go ahead, Sean.
so this is an amendment to the existing contract?
This was the existing contract,
Mhm.
and we amended it through an MOU
Mhm.
to change their hours of pay from 35 to 37.5.
Which meets the state requirement. Is that?
It
what
gets
I
us
read?
closer to meeting the state requirement of 3.5.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All set? Any other questions? Take a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Anybody opposed? No, unanimous.
Item 8, marked as item 7, is authorizing a memorandum of understanding between Shaker Place Rehabilitation and Nursing Center and 1199 SEIU United Healthcare Workers Bargaining Unit and amending the 2023 Albany County budget.
This is an MOU for the 1199 SEIU registered nurses. They have their own collective bargaining agreement. This takes effect the first of this year, and it changes their work week from 8 hours or a 40-hour work week, 35 hours of pay, to 42.5-hour work week, 40 hours of pay. So for all of these registered nurses, we are now capturing 5 additional hours. We kept their rate of pay the same, but they are now getting paid for 40 hours. So their hourly rate went down. They did get an increase, but due to that increase, because of these additional hours, they waived their 2% increase that they should have gotten January 1st of this year in lieu of receiving this additional pay of 2.5 hours. And this will take them through December 31st of this year. And during this year, we'll be negotiating their new contract that will commence January 1st of next year. So
Any
this
questions?
amends their existing contract.
Yes,
Just a minute, go ahead, Sean.
on both of these, should we have a ratification letter for these as well?
We have a ratification letter that was given to us by Ruthie Young that was signed. We're getting an official letter from Maureen Thomasman of 1199. I spoke to them directly after speaking to Peter Apostle, and that's on its way here.
So
We do have this agreement signed by the union, and they did have a meeting with their members and a vote of the majority, and that's why this was able to be put in place. If they didn't vote to ratify this change, we wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah, that's all, I just want to make sure
But
the
we will,
members have
that
an
letter
opportunity.
is in the mail.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And that was for the previous?
We have it
previous
for all of
MOU
these
as well?
agreements, and this one that I'm presenting now, and the one I'm going to present, yes.
Oh, okay, very good, thank you.
Any more questions? Take a motion?
Motion.
Second? Anybody opposed? Unanimous?
And the final item is authorizing a memorandum of understanding between Shaker Place Rehabilitation and Nursing Center and 1199 SEIU United Healthcare Workers East Service and Maintenance Workers Bargaining Unit and amending the 2023 Albany County budget.
This is a modification, again, of the existing 1199 SCI agreement for all maintenance and service workers. That includes certified nursing assistants These people voted and agreed to forego their January 1st, 23 raise in lieu of working a 42.5-hour work week with 40 hours of pay and receiving the stipend that they were receiving. So they technically didn't get an increase in pay. They were getting a $4 an hour stipend approved and implemented. However, it wasn't permanent. This agreement makes that $4 an hour permanent. And that's why we were able now to capture an additional 5 hours if they worked a full week of every full-time person. And again, it's to get to the New York State Department of Health mandate of 3.5 hours. Now, there were certain staff members in this bargaining unit that refused to work an extra half hour per day. That's the maintenance department and grounds, the seamstress. So they were removed because they were not part of the ratification vote. And they are on the same schedule that they were on in 21, 22, and 23. And they received the 2% raise that's in the collective bargaining agreement. And they're not enjoying this additional dollars because they didn't want to work that extra half hour.
So they I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sure.
They elected not to be represented, is that basically?
They voted to remain as they were under the collective bargaining agreement. They're still, of course, in the union.
Yeah.
But they voted not to be part of this agreement, meaning the union contract says we get a 2% raise January 1st of 23. We want our 2%, and we do not want the additional stipend that's available to us because we don't want to be here 8.5 hours. We only want to be here 8 hours, being paid for 7.
And they can do that?
Yes.
No, well, I'm serious, I mean, if they're
Yeah.
a member of the bargaining
Yes.
unit, the contract
They're
is the
members
contract.
of the bargaining unit, but the union allowed each department to vote as a group. So even though two, as an example, which did happen, 2 maintenance workers agreed to work that additional half hour and get paid for 8, but the majority of the grounds and the maintenance workers did not. And being that they did not have a simple majority, they had to stay as per the collective bargaining agreement as written. They got a 2% raise, which is virtually probably 25% of 100%, meaning what everyone else got. They got 25% raise compared to what everyone else received. If that makes sense. They just didn't want to be in the building an extra half an hour. They said it's not worth it to us.
No, I get that, but normally the contract is the contract, and if you're a member of the bargaining unit, you're bound by it. But if they wanted to separate them out, everybody's in agreement, then I guess
The
it's okay.
union, and as a matter of fact, we have that in the ratification and the document signed by 1199 that excluded from this agreement, and their titles are listed.
Okay.
Any other questions, Commissioner? Take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. I think the
Okay,
motion
thank you.
adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second, we're out of here. Thank you, everybody.